happy to welcome all of my fellow board members and call the April 9th, 2019 school board meeting to order. Whether you are in attendance here or watching from another location, my colleagues and I are pleased you took time to join us. We appreciate and applaud your commitment to partnering with us in support of our schools, our students, our staff, and our community. While the board and Brevard Public School staff members are fully committed to doing our best to ensure excellence in Brevard Public Schools, we know that our success depends heavily on an engaged and committed community to work alongside us and help us to continually improve. Thank you for being active participants in the process. Tammy, roll call, please.
Ms. Belford?
Present.
Ms. Campbell?
Present.
Ms. Duskevich?
Present.
Ms. McDougall?
Present.
Mr. Susan?
Present.
Please join me at this time in a moment of silence as we mourn the loss of one of our BPS family members, Kayla Holmes, an 11th grade student from Satellite High School. Thank you. Matt Reed, Assistant Superintendent of Government and Community Relations, will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This brings us to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Mullins. Oh, I jumped. Excuse me. I forgot our board and superintendent recognitions.
Your favorite part.
Yeah, sorry about that. At this time, I'd like to offer my fellow board members and Dr. Mullins the opportunity to recognize students, staff, or members of our community. Ms. Campbell, would you like to start us off?
I absolutely would love to. I was privileged to attend the Neighbor at Brevard fundraiser breakfast a few weeks ago, and they are a faith-based organization in our community who is, their goal is to transform some of our struggling neighborhoods. And one of the projects that they have is the Dock, which is their Center for Kids. I think it's Dorcas Center for Kids is the name of it. Yes, in the Booker T. Washington area. And they shared some amazing statistics. Since Neighbor at Brevard has been in that area, crime has dropped actually 67%. And it's an area that used to be known for just a place that you don't go. And the police are recognizing it, the whole community. But the Dorcas Center for Kids, one of the things that they gave us some statistics. Last year they graduated 4 seniors. This year they're anticipating graduating 5 who have been through the program since they were kids. All 4 of those are currently enrolled in college. They have had no dropouts or arrests from the group of students who come to their after-school and summer programs. And also the average GPA is 2.74, but there's even a higher percentage that have a 3.0 average or higher. And so we're just so thankful. I'm so thankful for groups like that who are investing in our students in our demographically, our economically challenged areas. They're really helping to transform that area. Also, just want to report on Bus Driver Appreciation Day, which is unofficial this year, but my daughter and I went out for her project, but we're excited to see that we weren't the only ones, and it really took off, and the bus drivers really appreciated it, and just were so excited. In fact, she got some thank you notes today, but as we went around, we saw other people doing the same thing. So I think that we might need to come up with an official resolution for next year. It doesn't have to be April 2nd, because it was also FSA testing day, which was kind of tricky, but maybe we can come up with an official resolution for Bus Driver Appreciation Day for next year.
Are you looking for a motion?
Yeah, let's get the resolution done first, and then we'll do that. I'll talk to Matt. We went to Tallahassee last Thursday, and I won't steal all the thunder, but with our SGA leaders who presented last time, and it was an amazing trip. I got to ride the bus with the students, so that was a lot of fun. But I just wanted to recognize our adult coordinators who helped us. Bill Maharis and Kim Garton were amazing with coordinating the trip, but I also wanted to recognize Matt Reed for his organizing of the trip, Dr. Sullivan, who provided snacks, and Chris Moore, who came up.
Ms. Campbell, can I interrupt you for 1 second? Because I really want people to be able to hear what you're saying, and I think if we could ask our security to please address the noise in the hall.
Thank you. All right. So I just wanted to thank Bill Maharis and Kim Garton and Matt Reed for coordinating the trip and making it a very positive day for our students, and it was very positive for our legislators as well. I can tell you that the offices that we went into, many of the people that we spoke with are just really unaware that the vaping issue is in our schools, and so they were so thankful for this information. But I also want to thank Dr. Sullivan for providing snacks, and for Ms. Moore for coming up at Dark 30 and just to bring us cookies to show some love. So, but it all made the day great, and our students were fabulous in their presentations. On Saturday, there were a couple of things. One was not an official BPS activity, but some of our students participated in the 4-H extravaganza. If you live in the city and not in the country part of Brevard, you may not even realize that we have that going on still. But some of our students, I saw chickens, turkeys, rabbits, pretty amazing things. And so congratulations to our students who participated in that. And then Saturday was also the second annual BPS car show. Held at the American Muscle Museum there on Sarno Road. And I got to see, among the many vehicles from the public that our students were voting on, I got to see some project cars that our students, some are in progress, some are finished, at Oak Valley High School and Heritage, and our adult ed programs are doing, and they're doing some great work. And also they made all the trophies. They welded all the trophies custom, and they were really, really cool. So congratulations to our CTE programs, our automotive programs, for putting on a fantastic event. And that's all I got.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Mr. Susan?
So first off, I want to say thank you to everybody that's out there that came in here for one reason or another to support the various issues that you have. I see some former students of mine that were out there, Allie Sharrow, along with some former teachers that I taught with. I just want to say thank you for coming. We truly appreciate you guys coming out in full support for whatever it is that your issue is, and thank you very much for that. I did want to say thank you to the rest of the staff, Matt Reed, everybody else who put together the Capitol experience that you guys had. Unfortunately, I sit on the board of directors for the Florida School Board Association, who was electing the president, vice president, and all that stuff. So I was only able to come over for a limited time. But to see the enthusiasm that's inside those kids is absolutely amazing. There is no other school district in the Capitol moving around with SGA students working on issues. And that is a district initiative that we put forward 2 years ago. Dr. Blackburn did, and we're following up with it. We need to be very proud of those individuals because they shined. And I can't tell you how many legislators have told me that they are very impressed with our kids and how they handled themselves over there. I also wanted to say that last Wednesday, the CPT, the Certified Production Technician, I am the chairman for the Economic Development Council's Board of Directors, where we get kids jobs working as certified production technicians. And what that is it's an entry-level manufacturing job that's fully paid for. It's a training that our graduates can take advantage of so that they can enter into possibly machining and welding and other issues that we might have out there in the workforce. I also want to say thank you because we all went to Anderson's 50th anniversary. Many of you know that all of our aging schools that we have out there were all built between 1966, 67, 68, 69, and we're in a 50-year renewal. So a lot of the stuff that you hear us say that our air conditionings are that down or we're having problems with facilities, a lot of that comes from the fact that we have one of the oldest school districts because we had a space race that happened in 1960s and we're seeing it now. I did want to, on that note, give a big shout out to Sue Hahn. She put together, they're in the process of putting together a facility assessment for each one of our schools for the needs that we have. And I'll tell you, one of the hardest things that we do as a district is identify some of the issues that we have at each one of our schools, whether that's air conditioning or whatever that is, and then being able to put that on a renewable program where we have maintenance to do it. Because if you don't take care of some of the small problems now, they become huge problems later. This whole book is just endeavor. And I wanted to hand this to you guys so that you could take a look at it. She's gone through one school and she plans on going through every school to put a renewable maintenance schedule on every single program that we have, from mechanical to roof to everything. And to say the least, that is an amazing accomplishment. We will lead the state of Florida in a facilities assessment in that direction. I want to give Sue Hahn and her staff an amazing shout out for that. I get to fly next Wednesday and go to Houston because we're in the process of putting together a possible manufacturing plant at Space Coast High School, which will allow NASA astronauts to come in and work with students on putting together things that may go up into the space station. Talk about leading the nation in programs and everything else. That's our school district. And a lot of that goes out to career and technical programs, Janice Schultz, Stephanie Sullivan, and everybody else. I'm so proud of our district for putting that together, and that's an amazing program that we hope to bring here. Also, I wanted to say that the Vieira Health Program is now working with, possibly partnering with Ronald McDonald House, which many people say, wait a minute, how is that possible there in Orlando? Unbeknownst to me, I didn't know this, but Ronald McDonald House is with Nemours over there in Orlando. They actually have more kids that go there from our county than any other county in the state. And the question is why, and all of those other things, it ties back to the fact that we have one of the specific needs that they provide. So they're looking at partnering with our health program at Vieira High School in order to bring a really amazing opportunity for our students there. With that, I won't steal some thunder on some of the other issues, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Susan. Ms. McDougall.
Thank you. I want to go ahead and remind everybody that the Kiwanis has a 5K run on May 4th that will, all the funds will help with school supplies for our students in the upcoming year. Also, I attended with Ms. Campbell and also Dr. Mullins the Champions for Education breakfast. We had some amazing speakers there, very motivational, who had a mentor, and he came from a background that many of us may not have been able to succeed. And he had a mentor, and he is now working for Harris, I think. Yes, Harris Corporation. And his story was very moving. So this is a great organization. They help our teachers, they help our students, they help our community, and it was wonderful to be part of that organization. I too participated in the appreciation for bus drivers. That was kind of fun. It took me a while to figure out where it was. My hat's off to all our bus drivers. It's a tough job, and they bring our kids to school safely and take them home safely. We celebrated, as Mr. Sisson said, the 50th anniversary at Anderson Elementary, and what I was so surprised about was they had a teacher who started there when the school opened. Not that she's teaching now, but she came and visited, and it's like a family. We had teachers through different generations come back to celebrate the 50th anniversary. Edgewood, they had a great Spanish festival during, remember that hailstorm they had there? It was during the hailstorm, and it was wonderful to be able to participate and join them in their Spanish festival. That's a fundraiser, again, for scholarships for students in their school. The zoo's having a 25th anniversary coming up, and you can participate in that by buying, I think they were going to buy, I can't remember what you can buy for $25, but you can, it's a plaque or a brick that they're celebrating their upcoming anniversary. Please don't forget that the Cocoa High School has been invited to go to Carnegie Hall, and they are having fundraisers. They need to raise a lot of money, so anybody who can help them get to Carnegie Hall is a great honor for our Cocoa High School choir. And I also wanted to give a shout out to two schools, one and two, well, really more than two schools. It's all wrapped together. This past Saturday at Saturn Elementary, Edgewood and West Shore came to Saturn and helped, along with Keep Brevard Beautiful, spruce up the whole grounds. They did gardening. Lowe's donated plants. Target donated food. It was an amazing opportunity to keep our schools looking beautiful, and it was a whole community. It was our students, I think it was the Honor Society from Edgewood, Saturn, and West Shore who all helped beautify the Saturn Elementary. And last but not least, I went to Gulfview, which was my first time there, and it's a wonderful family, a community school, and I saw a fuse lab for the first time, and what those students do is amazing, and it's been wonderful to visit my schools to understand what's going on in the schools, meet with our teachers, meet with our students, and find out all the wonderful things that we do here in Brevard.
Thank you, Ms. McDougall. Ms. Belford?
Thank you, Ms. Duskovich. I have a couple of things. One, many thanks to Ms. Campbell for bringing the bus driver appreciation event to our awareness. I was very excited to find out that several of our schools were recognizing bus drivers on that day. Like one of our our middle schools in the north area gave out donuts that morning, and there were little treats given at several of the different schools. So thank you very much, and I absolutely concur that we need to identify a date for next year. A lot of the bus drivers didn't even know it was Bus Driver Appreciation Day until we showed up and said, we're here to say thank you to you. So I know it was kind of a, student-led, which I think is fabulous. And we did manage to get the word out pretty good for, I think it was just about a week that we had to spread the word on it. So thank you, and please thank your daughter for getting that movement going, and thank you to all of the schools that took time out to help celebrate those bus drivers. Jackie Church, I know you were just here. Where did you go? Are you in the back room?
There she is.
If you all would please join me in wishing Jackie Church a happy birthday. If you know Jackie, you know that she is BPS. She is the one that always comes running when we get into a technology glitch and find ourselves backed into a corner on something. She always picks up the phone and always helps us with whatever it is. So Jackie, thank you for all that you do. I hope that you have a very happy birthday. We appreciate you. Also wanted to touch on our FSBA day in the legislature, which was in concert with our students visiting Tallahassee. I was up the Wednesday before our students went, and we had a briefing on budget. We had a briefing on legislative issues, a couple of speakers, and so it was a really good session. And I'll be forwarding you all some notes on that. Of course, we know, especially at this point in the legislative session, things are changing minute by minute. So much of what I will share with you has probably changed since last Wednesday, but definitely some good information, some good direction on various things. And then, of course, on Thursday, we had our students up there with us. And I'm going to give a quick shout out to my students. I had 4 absolutely awesome students. Sydney Atchison, I think, from Titusville High School. Cassie Ruiz, who many of you may have seen on the news, she did several interviews about their trek to Tallahassee. Kyle Falvey from Space Coast as well, and then Ashley Copeland from Edgewood. And what an awesome, awesome group of students. All the students we had up there with us were phenomenal. They were prepared, they were confident, they were excited, and we had some phenomenal legislators that took time out of their day to meet with our students. We all had a different schedule. We had 3 different groups, I think, going around meeting with legislators, and all of the legislators were so gracious. Special thank you to Representative Tyler Soroy, who actually made an opportunity for the students to go and visit the House floor. He gave them a tour of the House floor and explained some of the murals in the House and some of the things that are kind of tradition in the House. And that was phenomenal for the students. Representative Placencia pulled our students aside and had some conversation with them kind of at the last minute, and made time not only to speak with them, but also wants to follow up with them and meet with them on a quarterly basis going forward, so he can make sure to have the student voice in his decisions in Tallahassee, which we always appreciate. So we'll be following up on that. We also had, which was kind of interesting, my team met with Representative Alupas, who is not from our delegation, and sometimes it's difficult to get in and meet with folks who are not part of your delegation. But in speaking with Representative Alupas, he asked our students if they had had the opportunity to meet with the bill sponsor of the bill that they were up there speaking on. And we did not have that opportunity. We're not able to get on the bill sponsor's schedule, but Representative Alupas happened to be friends with the bill sponsor and reached out to him, and so we were actually able to take all of our students up to Representative Beltran's office to speak with him about the bill that he brought forward, share with him the importance of it to our students, and speak to him about some of the things that we can do going forward to address the vaping issue. So very, very excited for our students to have that opportunity. Our next step, Mr. Reed, I think, is going to be working on reaching out to our federal delegation so that our students can share some of that information as well, because some of their requests really are things that need to be addressed at the federal level. So we'll be circling back with that. And Dr. Mullins, I did not even have an opportunity to share with you that I got a call from Andrea Messina, who is the executive director of the Florida School Board Association, yesterday. And she called and said, I heard that your students were absolutely phenomenal while they were up here. and had a media outlet that had reached out to her on the vaping issue, and she really did not know very much about it, and so she was asking for some clarification on some issues and some background on how we pulled our students together and how that all really was a student-driven initiative. And so FSBA is also looking at how they can potentially expand that concept of including students in our day in the legislature, I think. So wonderful, wonderful opportunity for all of us, and I'm so thankful for the gracious legislators that help to give our students some voice in Tallahassee. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you, Ms. Belford. Dr. Mullins.
Thank you, Ms. Deskovich. Well, I'll echo Ms. Belford's appreciation to our delegates and our legislators in Tallahassee. They were very responsive and very hospitable to our students. They were amazing. The entire day, just ate up every minute of it. Want to do a shout out. Had the privilege at the Anderson 50th anniversary. There were two teachers there, 50th anniversary, two teachers there that opened the school. Miss Norma Wines and Miss Della Rose, and they were absolutely delightful and just wonderful to have as part of the ceremony. Going back to our SGA kids in Tallahassee, have to do a shout out to our SGA sponsors back at their home school. The kids' preparations and their knowledge and their studying and their articulate presentation of the issues was obviously supported by the SGA sponsors back at our high school. So a great appreciation for our sponsors and the support that they give our kids. Transportation, the Bus Driver Appreciation Day. I want to add some context around. Folks see our yellow buses, they see our bus drivers, but do they know and understand we have almost 400 bus drivers? We transport over 23,000 children every morning and every afternoon. Our bus drivers manage a 3-tiered pickup and drop-off service. Interestingly, I was at the Central Florida Coalition meeting on Monday, and other districts were asking us how we move to a 3-tiered system. It's more efficient, it's less costly, and our bus drivers have been doing it for years so seamlessly. So just a great appreciation for them. So Dr. Mike Miller, our director, Glenn Instance, assistant director, but along with them is a host of great leaders in transportation. Each one of our main depots, we have 4 main depots across the district from Titusville to South Brevard. The work that they do way long before we're up in the morning to make sure that our buses are ready, our drivers are covered, our routes are taken care of, and so on. Just wanted to express my own appreciation. I had the privilege of being introduced to the UP Times, University Park Elementary School Times. It is a student-produced and published newsletter. That was started under Miss Anna Diaz, the principal there, and just an absolute fantastic publication. I'll share it with you. I haven't had a chance to forward it, but share it with the board. But amazing that it's student-produced, our elementary kids, and published. Also at University Park, FIT has partnered with them to create a Girls That Code Club. And they also have a Space Pandas robotics team that has started for 6th graders. So appreciation to Ms. Diaz and her leadership and the teachers and the community coming around another one of our great schools in Melbourne. And got to do a little infomercial this Saturday, this Saturday at 2 p.m. at the King Center. I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, one of my favorite concerts. I have lots of favorite concerts, but this is one of the favorites, is All County Jazz Band. And I've been going for, I think, since we started it about 4 or 5 years ago. If you haven't had the opportunity to come and enjoy an afternoon of jazz from both our middle and high school jazz students, you are in for an amazing treat. So this Saturday, 2 p.m. at the King Center. And last and far from least, want to do a huge shout out to our science students, our science teachers, our science resource teachers and leaders across the district. State Science and Engineering Fair. It took place a couple weeks ago. Of the 875 students there, Brevard sent 80 students. That's almost 10% of the participants at the state science engineering fair. Well, that may sound okay, but Brevard only represents less than 3% of the students statewide, but we send almost 10% of the kids to the state science fair. On top of that, of the 26 categories, Brevard took first place in 6 of them. That's 23% of the first place awards Brevard brought home with our students. And of the 8 international science and engineering fair bids available, Brevard took 2, which is 25% of the international awards. So special congratulations to Angelina Guerrera and Nina Reddy. Angelina's from Edgewood, Nina's from Satellite. They are our 2 international science engineering fair students. So science is alive and well in Brevard.
Thank you, Dr. Mullins. I have a few myself. I want to thank Northrop Grumman and Junior Achievement. They partnered together. Northrop Grumman provided 60 volunteers last week, and they did JA for a day at Gulfview Elementary School. I popped in because my own husband is an employee at Northrop Grumman, and he took over a classroom for a day, and that was rather interesting to observe. So we appreciate Junior Achievement and all that they do, and Northrop Grumman for providing a full day of 60 volunteers and giving them the time off work to be with our students to share their skills. I know that the students were very appreciative also. I want to give a shout out to Jeff Arnott. He was elected secretary. He's our head of adult education, and he was elected secretary of the Coalition of Adult Basic Education, which is a national organization with 25,000 members. And I think the email said he was overwhelmingly elected secretary. So that's an important leadership role to put Brevard on the map for adult education. He does a great job in his position. This week, Miss Heather Haskett at Delora Middle School, who is the Spanish teacher there, was awarded our Bridge Builder pin. The principal there said that Ms. Haskett has started a club called Project 17, and the sole mission of the club is to promote kindness on campus. And he said it's had overreaching effects between the students and within the faculty and the school, the things that the club is doing. So we're appreciative to her for that. On a side note, when I was in there visiting her classroom, the students were telling me about a recent field trip. She takes the kids to a local Mexican restaurant every year, and they're only allowed to speak Spanish from the time they leave school till the time they get back to school. So they have to order their food in Spanish and do everything in Spanish. And I think it's a great hands-on opportunity for the kids, and they love it, and I love to see our kids so engaged. Miss Jill Whitaker at West Shore was awarded the Big Dreamer pin this past week. Miss Whitaker is the head of the robotics program there at West Shore. And in 2012, she had a dream and a vision of a robotics class for her students there, her middle school students. She spent the whole summer writing the curriculum for that class. And that class has grown, I think, into 3 classes and now a robotics 2 class that she's working on. She's brought in sponsors from the community to fund the thousands of dollars of equipment for the robotics teams. She sponsors the all-girl drone racing team, which won first at Mr. Susan's Innovation Games. So she had a vision, she chased after it, she worked hard, and she just loves what she does, and the students love her. So we appreciate her so much for dreaming big for our community. Miss Stephanie Colina at Palm Bay Magnet High School was awarded the Excellence Achiever pin this past week. She is a school counselor, and one of the amazing things she does every year, she puts together the career fair, but she also does a program where the whole school comes together out on the football fields, and they give a large amount of recognition to all the students, the seniors that have been accepted to colleges, kind of like a college signing day for athletes, but they do it or kind of like a signing day for athletes. She does it for colleges for their students, and all the students cheer, and they get recognition up on the stands that are attending. And Mr. Kaminsky, the principal there, really wanted to give her some recognition for that. So I stopped by and was able to congratulate her and give her the pin and the little card, and I think she was really appreciative of that. Those are the shout-outs that I have, so I think that wraps it up, and we are ready to move on to the adoption of the agenda. Dr. Mullins?
Ms. Deskovich and members of the board, on this evening's agenda, we have administrative staff recommendations, 21 consent items, 5 action items, 3 of which are public hearings and 2 information items. You also have the yellow supplemental agenda, which are changes made to the agenda since being released to the public on Tuesday, April 2nd, 2019.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Belford. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins, will you please let us know about the administrative staff recommendations?
Madam Chair, there is one person on this agenda item for the board to consider.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. McDougall. Any discussion? Please vote. There are no recognitions, no proclamations, no presentations. We are now on to the public comment section of our school board meeting. And I have a statement to read. Those School Board Policy 0169.1 limits to 30 minutes the portion of the meeting during which the public is invited to participate and provide public comment. The policy further provides that this time limit may be extended by a vote of the board. We have 17 public comments this evening. And so as a board, we need to decide if we want to hear them all at once or if you want to take the first 30 minutes and move the rest to the end of the board meeting. What are your wishes?
I would move that we go ahead and take them all.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Belford that we listen to all 17 public speakers now, and second by Mr. Susan. Any discussion? All in favor, we'll take a voice vote.
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes 5-0. So we will now take our 17 speakers. Each speaker is limited to 3 minutes. We have a clock in front of me to help you keep track of your time. When your time is over, you'll be asked to stop and allow the next speaker his or her turn. Always keep in mind that reasonable decorum is expected at all times, and your statement should be directed to the board chairman. The chairman may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement when time is up, personally directed, abusive, obscene, or irrelevant. Should an individual not observe proper etiquette, the chairman may request the individual leave the meeting. Let's all encourage an environment appropriate for our children who may be present or watching from home. Let's begin with our first 3 speakers. Anthony Colucci, Vanessa Skipper, and Deborah King. Before speaking, if you each would state your name, the organization you represent, and identify the topic you'll be discussing. Thank you. Mr. Colucci.
My name is Anthony Colucci, president of the best union in the country. That's you guys. Florida is 46th in the nation in teacher pay, and Brevard County teachers, the second most experienced workforce in the state, are $1,103 behind the state average. And you've made one of the lowest salary offers in the state this year. It is a fact that your teachers are amongst the worst paid teachers in the nation. You are the ones responsible for this. It is a fact that this board has done little to address this, and it is a fact that you have no serious plan to address it. I watched your budget workshop. Do you really think because you said pay is your priority that there is anyone who believes you anymore? I certainly don't. You all said the same thing last year and the year before, and you certainly said it on the campaign trail. Enough is enough. Put our money where your mouth is. When I was elected, I promised I would do everything I could to improve teacher compensation. If that means going to impasse every year, so be it. We will do whatever it takes for us to improve pay for our outstanding teachers. Your budget workshop was a joke. You didn't direct your CFO. She directed you as to what you're going to be doing. Do you really think cutting department budgets in 5% increments is going to work to get us competitive pay? A 20% cut equals a 1% raise. Are you going to cut 60% so you can keep up with inflation? It's time for someone on this board to rise above this and come up with a real way to pay teachers. Every year, it is the same terrible plan. Pray that Tallahassee sends more money. Are you ever going to learn you need a better plan? Why aren't you discussing the budget here? Every 2 weeks I come up here and I talk about it. What do? You make snide union-busting comments to our teachers in private, and they all get back to me. So when you threaten that if you give teachers a competitive raise, you'll have to cut art and music programs, shame on you. That is an outright lie, and no other district had to do that. You can't find anything else to cut down here? On April 23rd, we're going to show you how to pay for our raises. Our teachers and community expect you to be there watching. It's not okay to get some watered-down version from your CFO who's out there protecting her own job, not looking out for our raises. It's not okay to wait for the video and hope somebody records the audio. And let me be crystal clear. If the magistrate has a favorable ruling and you don't respect it, you'll destroy any remaining trust. As you seek to pass another half-cent sales tax, it will be heard loudly and clearly all over this county. You can't be trusted with taxpayer money. Our union cares, our union shows up, and our union fights. It's in your power how we channel that.
Thank you, Mr. Colucci.
Good evening, Vanessa Skipper, Vice President of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. I'm here with a little bit different of an ask. On April 17th, every single school in this county, teachers will participate with a walk-in. We are walking in to our jobs to ask for more funding from Tallahassee. I heard a lot of you talk about our students going to Tallahassee, and I think it's phenomenal that our students are civically engaged and they are interacting with our legislators in a positive way. However, I didn't hear one of you talk about asking our legislators in Tallahassee for more funding. I'm going to read some facts. Florida ranks 42nd in total education spending per pupil and 51st in public school revenue for every 1,000 of in-state personal income. In other words, no other state collects less to support public schools than Florida, even though Florida has the 7th largest economy in the country. Student performance is among the best in the nation, yet Florida ranks 46th in teacher salaries, and Brevard pays its teachers $1,103 below the state average, making us the worst paid teachers in the state. Florida's average teacher salary is more than $10,000 less than the national average. Average salaries are $8,000 higher in Georgia and $3,000 higher in Alabama. No wonder Florida started this school year with more than 4,000 teacher vacancies statewide. And the DOE, not us, the Department of Education, projects over 10,000 public school teacher vacancies at the end of the year. It is not enough to say that you care about teachers' pay. It is time that we all put our words in action and get money for teachers. And also our education staff professionals. I heard you guys talking about bus drivers. The federal poverty level is $25,750, and Brevard pays its bus drivers $19,608. I'm sorry. I told you guys last week, I have been coming up to speak before you since 2013. That's because back then I saw the writing on the wall, and I have seen the profession that I love get stamped into the dirt every single day. I am an English teacher, and I would love to be teaching English. But I am doing what I said I would do, and I am advocating every single day with every breath that is in my body for our teachers and for our students. You guys talked about science fair. We have Joe and Lisa Scott. I think Joe Scott is here from Satellite. They spent an entire week in Tampa. He shouldn't have to come here. This is his 6th time in a row coming here asking for you guys to put more money in teacher salary. You can do it. And please consider standing with us on April 17th, walking with our teachers. There's also a petition. I believe Dr. Mullins has it. I don't know if you've signed it yet, but we would like you to sign it for our legislators. I will make sure you guys get the link as well.
Thank you, Ms. Skipper. Go ahead, Ms. King.
I'm Deborah King, and I am an employee of Brevard Schools. I am also a product of Brevard Schools. I grew up here. I moved away. I came back 6 years ago. I transferred from another county in Florida and took a significant pay cut. The county I came from had raised their rates, their salaries, because they were having trouble keeping employees. Once they raised their salaries, they were able to get the pick of the litter. They could get as many employees as they needed. They never had vacancies. They could get the best, and I'm really nervous. I don't like speaking in front of groups. But they had their choice, and they brought people from surrounding counties into their county and never had any problems. I took a significant pay cut to come here just to be close to family again. But the offer that the school board has offered for our raise is insulting. It's so little amount. It doesn't cover cost of living increases, and we're having trouble living on the salaries that you guys give us. The bonuses are taxed so much that I get the best and brightest bonus, but it was so heavily taxed that by the time it gets to me, it's a much smaller rate. It started off at the state gave us $6,000 for that, and by the time it got to me, it was $3,900, which seems huge, huge amount of taxes to come out of that. It would be better if all of that money just went into salaries rather than bonuses. Then it can go into our retirement so that we can actually retire at some point. And since I have a little time, our schools have an issue with behavior. I've noticed it starts in the pre-K and carries on up. I think if we addressed it in pre-K, that would help. It was very eye-opening for me to come here from the county I was at before. The first year we were here, I had a kindergartner. She was bit, and the story they gave me when they called me was, well, this time it didn't break the skin. This child had had multiple instances, but was back in school with her after a couple of more days, and she was terrified to go to school because she didn't know what triggered this kid, and it took a lot of effort to get that kid the help that he needed. My other child was in a classroom that had to be frequently taken to the classroom because there was a student that would throw desks. And we didn't have any of this at the county we came from. It was very eye-opening for us to come, but I beg you to pay the teachers what we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next three speakers are Jonathan Hillard, Tammy Bailey, and Dorothy Davis.
I'm Jonathan Hillard, teacher and second vice president of the Brevard Federation of Teachers. I once had a principal tell me that the best way to keep your priorities straight was to keep the main thing the main thing. She meant that at the end of the day, student achievement is the most important thing that we do. Students come first. Without successful students, we don't have a successful district, the main thing. How do students reach success? Teachers. Without effective, passionate, dedicated teachers, our students will not be able to achieve at the best of their abilities. It is the teachers that make this happen. Let's be very clear. If there are no textbooks, it is the teacher that will continue to teach our students. When the air conditioning fails, it is the teacher that will distribute cool water and bring fans from home. And God forbid, if someone wants to do harm to our students and enters our schools, it will be the teacher that will either hide their students, tell their students to run, or if necessary, fight for the lives of their students. It's not going to be the new fences, the closed-circuit TV systems, the locked doors, or even an armed citizen or an SRO. It will be their teacher. We are the first and last line of defense for our students. We are the first and last line of success for our students. So when you say we want to give you teachers a fair and livable wage, there just isn't enough money because of more pressing priorities. It sounds like the main thing is no longer the main thing. I am under the expectation that board members are directed to direct the person that they have hired to make the decisions that they have made. In the case of teacher raises, a board does not go to the staff and ask, do we have enough money for raises? The board directs staff to lay out a budget plan that includes teacher raises. A board directs staff to make recommendations as to what departments would have to cut their budget in order to meet the criteria of the directive. I have heard, I want to give teacher raises, but, well, guess what? You can. If you direct staff to bring you a budget that includes it, then we as a community will decide if that is acceptable or not. It is time that the main thing is the main thing. And after our children, the main thing is our teachers. Regardless of the challenges, regardless of the barriers, regardless if the air conditioning is working or not, regardless if they have supportive families or not, regardless of how much security we have, when the chips all fall, it will be a teacher that makes a difference in the lives of our students. Do the right thing. Direct staff to present you with a plan that says teachers are the main thing. Direct staff to present you with a plan that gives teachers a future worth being passionate about, a future worth being dedicated to, a future worth sacrificing for, and a future worth being proud of. Direct staff to make and keep the main thing the main thing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Dr. Mullins and board members. My name is Tammy Bailey, and I am an instructor at Rockledge High School teaching health sciences classes and the patient care assistance program. My side hustle is teaching a course at Eastern Florida State College every Monday and Wednesday evening. I am a nurse and a teacher. What is your superpower? In the first week of one of my courses, I discuss healthcare careers with students who are entering the medical field with an interest in everything from becoming a certified nursing assistant to getting a head start on their journey to become a neurosurgeon. They learn that, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 10 of the top 20 fastest growing jobs in all industries are healthcare related. We can thank the baby boomers for that. By 2030, the number of persons aged 65 and older will have grown to 72 million people, making up 19% of the population. Baby boomers, those born from 1946 to 1964, will need health care services at an alarming rate, and at the same time, baby boomers working in health care will retire. Knowing what I know, I really hope there will be someone to care for me a little later in life. It is the same with education. Baby boomers, in their large numbers, will retire. There will not be enough teachers entering the workforce to make up for the lost teachers, and it gets worse. According to the U.S. Department of Education, an average of 16% of public school teachers change schools or leave teaching every year. This is over 500,000 teachers nationwide. More than 40% of teachers leave the profession within 5 years. Teacher turnover is a problem that can set a student's learning back significantly. A UF researcher who studies education policy and school improvement found that a teacher leaving during the school year is linked to a loss of 32 to 72 instructional days, a significant part of a year of disrupted learning. A sub is not a licensed teacher. Students do busy work, classroom management is marginal, and learning gains are lost. Or students are doubled up with other teachers. How can a teacher be expected to teach highly effectively or even be effective under these conditions? More importantly, and more worrisome, how can students be expected to learn? And as with the future of healthcare, I worry about the future of education for so many reasons. I worry about education in general, and I worry about this district. I worry about, frankly, I don't see how this district will stay an A district with experienced teachers leaving for other jobs as part of the silent strike, leaving for higher wages elsewhere, God forbid, leaving for a whole new career altogether, leaving behind numerous instructional vacancies due in large part to unacceptable pay and undesirable working conditions. I'm baffled at how the board seems to be so complacent and lack the forethought to ensure the survival and strength of our local educational system by placing the oxygen mask on the teachers so they can serve the
Thank you,
students
ma'am.
optimally.
I'm sorry, but your time is up.
I understand.
Ms. Davis?
Good evening, Dr. Mullins and school board members. My name is Dot Davis, a Brevard County school teacher. I come to you tonight not only for myself, but on behalf of my fellow colleagues throughout Brevard County. To begin with, I'd like to give you a background of why I became a teacher. 1985, 34 years ago. That's how long that I've been affiliated with Brevard County Schools. I started out as a parent volunteer, and during that time, I realized that I wanted to make teaching my career. So fast forward to 2019, and here I am in my 25th year of teaching. In those years, I've seen a lot of changes in the teaching profession, some for the better, some for the worse. I've had the privilege of working with many very dedicated teachers. I don't think that there's any other profession that sacrifices their time and efforts the way that a teacher does. Many work way beyond their 40-hour work week. Most of us give up and work above and beyond the call of duty. Why? Because we care. We care about kids and their education. All of us went into the teaching profession knowing that we're not going to get rich. However, we did not expect to see the respect for our profession diminish to the degree that it has. We did not expect our STEP program to be taken away, nor for the state to take a percentage of our paycheck to put towards our retirement, nor for tenure to be done away with. And we certainly did not expect to have to beg year after year after year for a raise. No, we expected to be treated as the professionals that we are. We expected to be rewarded for our hard work and dedication to the future of Brevard County's students. I truly, truly do not understand why we have to beg for a raise. It is degrading to us. Can you not see that having to beg year after year is sucking the pure life out of us, one by one? Whether you realize it or not, you're slowly killing our passion, the thing that drives us to teach. Year after year, the school board acts as if our raise is like an unexpected bill that arrived in the mail, and they make excuses for why they have no funds to pay it. Meanwhile, many teachers in this county are living paycheck to paycheck, not because they're living beyond their means, but because they are struggling to pay their day-to-day bills. These same teachers have made Brevard County Schools top in the state year after year. Why would we not work just for 40 hours? Why would we just not say, forget it? The reason, ladies and gentlemen, is that you have some of the most dedicated, hardworking teachers in the state who care about kids and love teaching. But like anyone else, they have to make a living. I purposely wore black today. Black represents mourning, death, because you, Brevard County School Board members, are slowly killing the spirit of teachers that work in your schools. One by one, our teachers' numbers are dying. Our exhaustion and frustration of not being treated as the professionals that we are have resulted in many retiring earlier than planned, quitting in the middle of a school year, or not even bothering to choose teaching as a profession. It is no surprise that we have such a shortage of teachers in our county. The problem is not going to go away unless you, the school board, choose to change things. The old cliche that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care is very much relative to our situation. Well, I challenge you. Show us that you care. Put your money where your mouth is. Don't tell us that you care. Show us. Show us the money.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Our next three speakers are Fred Kilgallen, Curt Easton, and Martha Lopez Anderson.
Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Great. Good evening, school board members. My name is Fred Kilgallen. I am a member of BFT and also a classroom teacher. And, you know, I wondered what I might talk about this evening. I thought, okay, we could talk about how our bonuses for highly effective, when you do the math, with what's left over, comes out to about 54 cents an hour. And I thought we could talk a while about that, but it was just too depressing. So now let's talk about charter schools and how the chairman who leads our school board would be considered to be in a grave conflict of interest in any other industry if her membership in that other school board organization were held against her. But it's too negative, so I don't want to move on. I could talk about school board failures to ask for increased millage, to plan for salary, to exert control over their staff, to communicate well with the community about things like gun attack scares, but that is too mean. So I thought, okay, let's talk about not introducing more guns on campus, but that's just too freaking scary. So no, we're not going to talk about that. I thought about, hey, maybe I could practice my comedy routine. You do Jeff Foxworthy thing. If you're looking for ways to worsen conditions in our schools, you might be a Brevard County School Board member. Okay? But not really productive. So I remembered what my mother said, what she taught me, what she beat into me. If you can't say something nice, don't say anything. So I'm going to say something nice. Brevard County teachers have never been as angry, as motivated, have never joined our union in such numbers, have never been as committed to their profession, have never been as committed to solidarity as they are right now. You guys created the conditions that made all of this possible. We couldn't have done it without you. Thank you.
Mr. Easton.
I don't know what I'm going to say now. Hello, my name is Curt. My name's Curt Easton, and I'm the chair of Who We Play For, an organization dedicated to preventing sudden cardiac arrest in students. We've met before. It's nice to see you again. What I'd like to do tonight really is start off by saying that we are in a completely different tone. The folks that you see out here in the white shirts are all here to thank you for the decision that you're going to be making tonight as it relates to having your student athletes screened for heart conditions. So. Every one of the people in this room with a white shirt, and many of them that don't have white shirts because they didn't get theirs, has been impacted by this. And they're all from the Central Florida region. And so we want to say thank you. We want to also say that this is something that implemented, you're literally going to be saving lives. There's a study from Stanford University that says that out of every 1,000 students that are tested, 2 generally will have a life-threatening heart condition. And we estimate there's about 6,000 student athletes in Brevard County, so you can extrapolate from that, and this decision tonight will save literally 12 lives. Nationwide, there are an estimated 10 million athletes. And if you extrapolate that same thing, you're literally setting the stage for saving 20,000 children's lives. And you're going to take the lead on that. Brevard County the first school board in the country to make it a requirement to get an EKG before you can play athletics here. So, having said that, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, who is Martha Anderson. Martha is the executive director of Parent Heart Watch, and they are the voice of this from the national perspective. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Curt. So as he said, I'm the executive director of Parent Heart Watch. We're the only nonprofit organization solely dedicated to the prevention of sudden cardiac arrest and death in youth. And I'm also a mom. 15 years ago, I lost my son, suddenly and unexpectedly, seemingly healthy, never missed a day of school, never missed a well checkup. And so Sean's first symptom was death. And there started my own quest to end sudden cardiac arrest in youth, and that is the vision of Parent Heart Watch. Our vision is to eliminate preventable deaths and disabilities in youth by the year 2030. And with your action tonight, you will be a part of making that possible. But I want to share with you a little bit of information. So for those of you that may not know, sudden cardiac arrest is when the heart suddenly stops beating, and it affects people of all ages, including teens and children. So, and when this happens, it sometimes is because of a congenital heart condition that often goes undetected until that event that may be fatal. Sometimes it's an acquired condition that may be caused by a virus. Other times, it's caused by the energy drinks that sometimes a lot of our young people drink, or even the use of illicit drugs. So according to the American Heart Association, up to 16,000 kids per year under the age of 18 are lost to sudden cardiac arrest. 16,000. It's the #1 killer of our student athletes, the #1 cause of death on school campuses. What I didn't share with you before was losing my son changed my life and that of my family forever. But I'm going to tell you something that haunts me every single day, and that was learning that my son's death was preventable. So history and physical alone, which is what our pre-participation physical examinations are today, is not effective, is failing our kids. As a matter of fact, we have learned through our medical advisory board and other experts across the country that it fails our kids by 90%. That's crazy. So we have the ability with a very simple tool, a simple, non-invasive, yet the EKG, an electrocardiogram, can be done to complement that history and physical, and it's effective 86%. So just take that in for a moment. And Curt was mentioning a statistic, 1 in 300 kids are found at risk for sudden cardiac death. So I really thank you for your time, but on behalf of the Parent Heart Watch, Board of Directors, Medical Advisory Board, and members across the country in 39 states, some of whom are here today, and who we play for, who I'm extremely proud of for their leadership in doing this. I urge you to take action to please protect the lives of your student athletes. Thank you.
Our next 3 speakers are Lexi Sema, Jonathan Gibson, and Catherine Lilly.
Hey guys, so I'm Lexi, for those of you who know that. Thank God my dad won't be speaking today, so it's just me. Let's a little hand up for that. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Lexi, and I'm a survivor of the #1 killer of student athletes, sudden cardiac arrest. When I was 16, I died from something I've been doing every day of my life, running. Something as simple as running. But today isn't about me. This is about making Brevard County the safest county in the United States and saving the lives of innocent children. This room is filled with an army of people willing to fight for the children of Brevard County, not including the hundreds of people over my dad's social media. And we're here to thank you for doing the same. A week ago yesterday, a young man at my former high school collapsed from a detectable heart condition. He was one of our very own Brevard County lacrosse players, which requires a physical that did not save his life. The actions of our own did. I have personally saved 5 people with my own hands from a detectable heart condition that was life-threatening. School physicals miss 96% of heart defects that kill our kids. What's the point of doing a physical if we aren't even doing the one thing that's going to inevitably save their life? 90% of abnormalities are found on a simple EKG. For that remaining percent, we need to plan to save their life. For thank God, how Colin and I were saved. If we're prepared how we should be prepared to save a life, 89% of our students will survive. With right now, God forbid, the number is a staggering 8%. This is a no-brainer. This right here is going to save lives. If we aren't doing everything in our power to save our students, then what are we even doing here? I want to give my biggest praises to Matt Susan for caring about this epidemic as much as we do. Our goal is to detect a heart defect. Our goal is to detect a heart defect before we ever need an action plan. But if we do, we know that we will be prepared to save that life anyway. I want to personally thank you for supporting this drive to save these students' lives. And from our little army here today of everyone in Brevard County, we want to thank you for making Brevard County Public Schools the safest county in the United States of America. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Gibson. I want to thank you for this moment. I'm here to share a personal story. My son, James Gibson, was saved. His life was saved because of this test. Last May, let's rewind a little bit, he went to do the physicals to have summer workout for basketball and football. He was excited about being a freshman. And because of this test and who we play for, and Joe Manning and Jason Burley, inviting this to happen on Titusville High School's campus, we got a phone call that we'll never forget. Mr. Gibson, your son needs more testing. Mr. Gibson, don't panic. It's okay. I can stand here today and tell you that we've had hard nights and had to work through things, but thankfully he is still here. We didn't have to plan a funeral because of this test. And we are very thankful for who we play for in the EKG, that my son is still alive, that he has the rest of his life to live and to bring glory to God and to do things and change people's lives because he is still here. This test makes a difference. This test saves lives. And I thank you for your willingness to take that stand and to tell others that it's important. Because for 14 years, he passed every sports physical. That day, he passed the sports physical. The doctor gave him the thumbs up, but the doctor that read the EKG said you need to look into it more. So if we didn't do that test, I don't want to imagine what could have happened. But I'm very thankful that he is still here and that my son can live a life. And he's had to learn new things. Sports is not his deal anymore. He cannot do competitive sports, but he can do lots of other things, and he has new passions and new goals, and we are excited to walk along him in his new journey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here on behalf of my brother Ralph Macarone, who could not attend, and I'd like to share what he wrote. On Friday, November 30th, 2007, my life was devastated. On my way home from work, I received a phone call that my son Rafe Macarone had collapsed on the field. I was told to meet the ambulance at Cape Canaveral Hospital. When I arrived, Rafe's teammates were there supporting him. That evening, Rafe was transported to Arnold Palmer's Children's Hospital. Rafe lost his fight Saturday night, December 1st, 2007, with his family by his side. This was 1 week before his 16th birthday. This was a senseless tragedy that could have been avoided by a simple 5-minute EKG test. If I had known that there was even a possibility that our son would be taken from us like this, I would have been first in line to have him tested. Rafe's friends have started a grassroots effort in his honor to protect students from this silent killer, sudden cardiac arrest. I challenge the members of the Brevard County School Board to do what is right. Protect your students and support mandatory EKG screenings as part of the sport's physical process. Their lives depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next three speakers are Jennifer McGinnis, Catherine Land, and Hamilton Boone.
I want to thank you guys so much for what you're doing to fight for our students' lives. That is so important. Thank you. I'm going to bring the conversation back to teacher salary. My name is Jennifer McGinnis. I've been teaching math for 16 years at Melbourne High School. I'm a product of Brevard Public Schools, and I graduated from Melbourne High School. I am proud to serve our students of Brevard County. I don't have any children of my own, but I love each and every one of my students like they were my own child. I know this is what I am meant to do in life. I love my job, but I don't know if I'm going to be here next year. I have worked a second job for 14 of my 16 years as a teacher, either teaching at Eastern Florida, tutoring, coaching, sponsoring clubs, or writing curriculum. The list goes on for the people that are out here in red. The only reason why I stopped working a second job is because my doctor recommended that I cut out all the extra time that I was working due to health reasons. I knew I couldn't cut out the countless hours I spent preparing lessons and grading papers, so I gave up my extra income. The only reason why I was able to financially quit my side jobs was because I am married to an engineer. What kind of message does it send to our students and to our future educators that in order to be a teacher who does not live paycheck to paycheck, in order to be a teacher who does not work a second job, you have to marry someone who makes a lot more money than you do? I don't know a single one of my peers working in the private sector with my equivalent education and experience who has to work a second job to make ends meet. Before I was a teacher, I worked as a financial analyst. I took a significant pay cut to pursue a career that makes a difference in the lives of children. I ask you to please consider very carefully the decisions you make regarding the salary you offer us. I want to be back here next year. I don't want to leave this profession, but I do have other options. If your salary offer does not change, I will seriously reconsider those options. My story is just one of many. I don't want to leave this profession, but I will. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good evening. I am Kathy Lon, third grade teacher. Yes, sir.
Sorry about that.
Oh, come on. I am Kathy Lon. I am a teacher in this county since 1986, and sad to say that I cannot wait to retire, even though I love what I do. So many people have come up here over the weeks and said, shared their woes of their poor salary and their issues with making their budget stretch as far as possible, most with not much success based on today's living costs. And we all say that we never got into this for the money, I got into this for the children. I'm not here to say, woe is me. I have that husband with another salary. I'm here to say, shame on you. The public sees teachers asking for more money. I see poor per pupil spending. Shame on the teachers for not managing their money better. Shame on you for not being in it for the children and not managing your budget better. The resources you provide for us to teach our children are pitiful. I have to beg for textbooks for new students. I have to beg. My AP gets them for me, but I have to beg. How many of you know that this is our elementary school social studies textbook? This is a travesty. It is not a textbook. Did you instruct your staff to find the cheapest resource that they could find? This textbook, it's not a textbook. I'm sure every elementary teacher in this room has heard, I can't find mine. Mine ripped. It won't fit on my desk. What am I supposed to do? Over and over. Not to mention being unable to go back to something from a previous lesson to review. How about turn to this map on this page? Doesn't exist. Now let's talk about the science adoption for this year. Mr. Scott, my children were in your science classes. They are successful adults now. I have forbid them to become teachers. Science won't be alive and well for very long with what we have now. No textbook, no teacher textbook, okay, that's fine. I can do it online when online works in my classroom. If it's working, assume that it's working, and let's look at the teacher preparation section. These are actual instructions from the teacher preparation section that says, buy 3 types of plants with the same color bloom. Buy ice cream. Instead of purchasing 6 small plants, you can plant some seeds. Buy chocolate syrup, buy dark pancake syrup, dishwashing liquid, buy chocolate chips, buy pancake batter mix. I don't have the salary to do that, and my CSAP money doesn't cover it. My bookkeeper tells me I don't teach culinary arts. Now let's look at the 1 teacher kit for 5 teachers. It is not enough. Are you really in this for the students? Are you really serving every child with excellence? Or are you just covering up poor budgeting? Shame on you for tying our hands and hurting our children.
Before I begin, I'd like to just tell the teachers that I loved hearing the term teacher tonight. I keep hearing educator and professional educator, and teacher is beautiful. It doesn't need to be dressed up. As far as you people with the EKGs, I'm a physician assistant. I'm in my 40th year, and you're exactly right. Absolutely right.
Go ahead, Mr. Brown.
Yes, I'm here to address the policy 2520 that's being considered. That policy was specifically made for parents and guardians to be able to challenge materials that are used in the schools. And we continually hear that the school board and teachers say they want parents really involved, but this particular policy blocks parents from having any meaningful participation. If you want to fundraise or get new plants for a school or whatever, but anything but policy, you're not welcome in that. The school board has done some good work. They've come through, they've made some changes, but I've met with each school board member, and there's parts of it that need to be looked at again. And I apologize if I stumble. I left my glasses at home. The changes that need to be reconsidered again are mentioning all participants. The Florida statutes say that it's the parent, guardian, and resident. Resident's been left out multiple times. Statutes that are applicable to certain lines need to be included. They've been left out. Define how to notify parents, guardians, and residents of Brevard County of meetings concerning materials that are being questioned. If they're in one school, they're in other schools, as I've provided a list to the school board of some questionable materials. So it makes sense that parents and guardians and residents that are interested in that would want to know and then come and find out about that particular material. Committees, all committees are picked by the committees at the high school are picked by the principal. All members are either employees of the school board or friends and volunteers at that school. And one of the members will be a student. Guess which way they will vote. I had one person send me I found an email from a librarian up at Edgewood High School, and she's afraid that if I have parents, or God forbid, a resident that doesn't have a child in that school, that it's going to become biased. Well, biased, the principal picks all the members, the parent or guardian picks none. I want to know who's biased, actually. What I would ask, and that's just a few of the things that need to be looked at. Again, there's been some good changes to it. I would like to see all recording modalities allowed, since it's a meeting in the sunshine.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. Your time is up.
Thank you very much.
Our last two speakers are Charles Maskovich and Sean Sema.
Hello, my name is Charles Maskovich. I'm here to speak on behalf of the EKG incident. 10 years ago, as they brought up Rafe Macron, I was there at Cocoa Beach High School. I was there at a wrestling match when we had to tell one of his best friends what happened. That was 10 years ago, and I'm still standing here today talking about making this issue mandatory for athletes. 10 years ago, I had to walk around high school and tell people like Evan Ernst, who started this foundation. He asked me questions like, why? Zane Schultz, one of his good friends, why? All day, kids are just asking why. And we had no answer. I was a senior that year, and I had to look at everyone with nothing to say except for I'm sorry, and I don't know what. Fast forward now still, I have my son here with me today. He's 8 years old, and I'm still wondering, is this problem ever going to get fixed? Or is he going to be here 10 years from now asking the same questions? Is this going to be mandatory? And did he have to tell kids the same thing? Why? To anyone who's ever gone through this, Rafe's aunt and everything, I'm sorry. That was one of the hardest days of my life ever. And I hope that no one ever has to go through that again. To the kids here from Vieira High School and to the coaches, I'm sorry that we're still going through this, that I'm standing here 10 years again asking for this to happen and make it mandatory. Just think about this and all the kids that are going to be affected by this, their futures, what they're going to do and what they're going to think. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I was actually going to cut you off because your daughter said you weren't supposed to speak. So I would
Sure, if
appreciate
you could
that.
state your name, please.
Yes, my name is Taffy, T-A-F-F-I-A-B-T. I live in Indian River County, and when my son Michael was 12 years old, he died in school on the playground playing Capture the Flag from sudden cardiac arrest. He had his physical every year. Nothing was ever detected. We believe what he had from his autopsy was Wolff Parkinson White's. It's an electrical part, a wiring issue, and it could have probably been detected by an EKG. The Who We Play For organization is a great group of people who are dedicated to screening our youth athletes, and I really wish they had been around back then. I didn't know. You know, I trusted my doctor like most parents do. You get your kid's physical and you just expect it to be okay. The EKG takes 5 minutes. There's, no needles, there's nothing, no shocks. It's simple. I pray and hope that you will become the leaders in our state and make this mandatory and required for your student athletes. We have been screening with who we play for in Indian River County for about 5 years now. We do one screening at Sebastian River High School and one at Vero Beach High School. We also screen at the Indian River State College. The Indian River State College has made it mandatory for their athletes, and we're hoping that each county, this will be a trickle effect, and it will happen in every county in our state and make our state one of the leaders. In the 5 years that we've been screening, we have found 4 kids that need follow-up out of every 100. And 2 of those students have had corrective surgeries and are doing well now with conditions they would have never known about if they hadn't come to these screenings. My son Michael might still be here. I'm hoping you support these mandatory screenings. We lost another student in Sebastian last year, Kamari Lyons, to sudden cardiac arrest on the football field. So just think very deeply about how serious this is. And every 3 days, a child dies, and they say in every community there will be 5 events in every 3 years. So that's your community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abb. Would any board member like to comment on any of the public comments? Ms. Belford.
Thank you, Ms. Deskovich. I am a firm believer that people and places and things and experiences come before us for a reason. You all know that I have been a staunch advocate of drowning prevention in Brevard County, and I have been very supportive of the concept of making sure that we do everything that we can to keep our children safe. So I thank all of the Who We Play For folks for coming out tonight, and know that it is an issue that is near and dear to our hearts, and we appreciate you bringing the recognition to us. I also had an interesting experience as I was coming back from Tallahassee with our students. Usually I listen to the legislative sessions as I'm driving up, and this time I was driving back and all of the sessions were over with. And so I came across in my podcast feed a podcast that I had not heard about before. And it was called the Education Exchange Podcast, and the particular title of this episode was Fixing the Culture of Contempt. And it was an interview with a gentleman by the name of Arthur Brooks, who's an author. He is president of the American Enterprise Institute. He's a Harvard professor. And he's recently come out with a new book called Love Your Enemies, which I admittedly have not read. But one of the things that he talks about in his podcast, in this book, is this concept of the outrage industrial complex. And basically what this is the name that he has given to the current state of polarization in our society. And he talks about how we got to the point where we are of polarization. And basically, he has determined, as have several other experts, that it is the result of contempt. And there's a huge difference between anger and passion about an issue and contempt. When we fail to separate people and ideas, we have a tendency to lean toward contempt. For example, it's important to realize and remember that people are not stupid and evil. We just don't always agree on everything. And I think that's an important point. He goes on and says that the most dangerous times in our history were characterized by contempt. Throughout history, if you look at those times when the most harm was done, it was centered around that contempt. And if any of you have done any studying of Dr. Gottman, you may have heard him speak of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. And in fact, contempt is one of those 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Contempt is characterized by hostile humor, sarcasm, insults, belittling, blaming. They have found that treating others with contempt not only decreases your happiness, but it also decreases the happiness of the person being treated with contempt. But most importantly, and the reason that I focused on this, is that contempt stops progress. Contempt is not persuasive. In fact, they say no one in history has been insulted into agreement. In fact, what typically happens is what they call the boomerang effect. They double down. So you're probably wondering where I'm going with this. He goes on to say that the mark of moral courage is not to stand up to those with whom you disagree. It is to stand up to those with whom you agree on behalf of those with whom you disagree. In essence, we each have a duty to push back against the outrage industrial complex that is taking over our society in order to continue to ensure progress. We have to stay focused on ideas and separate ideas from people. When we disagree better, we see better progress. I bring this up because this very much characterizes the relationship between BFT leadership and the current board. Nowhere, in my opinion, is progress more important than in education. All of us as leaders in education have a duty to disagree better. Of course, we know it's easier to see the sins of the other side in greater focus than sins on our own side. I strive to look in the mirror before pointing a finger at anyone else. So first, I apologize for allowing myself to view you or your method of disagreement with contempt. In full transparency, I have found myself in recent months allowing insults, sarcasm, belittling, snarkiness to overshadow message. I've begun to perceive that speaking at the board meetings has sometimes been more about showboating than about really trying to work through issues, and I have quite honestly allowed myself to feel contempt toward individuals rather than looking at the ideas. In doing so, I have become part of the problem. Our mission is too critical not to make choices and focus on perspectives that promote progress. Teachers, staff members, and most importantly, students are counting on us to be effective advocates for them in our community, at the state level, and at the national level. While we may disagree on ideas or solutions, we are all working toward the same goals, and as such, we need to work together effectively. If this were just about how we're working together at the local level, I may be tempted to keep these thoughts to myself to avoid further conflict. But the picture is much bigger than just this boardroom or just this district. My hope is that sharing this information will encourage all of us to self-reflect on the methods we use in our advocacy, and to find a more productive way to disagree. Because your role in advocating for teachers in multiple spheres, as our role in advocating for teachers in multiple spheres, is critically important. And I want, and we need, all of us to be successful. That's all I've got.
No, Mr. Colucci, we're done with public comment, sir. Thank you, sir. Does any other board member have any comments towards any of the public comments? Okay, that moves us to the consent agenda. Dr. Mullins.
There are 18 agenda items under this category.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second. Oh, wait, hold on. Thank you, Dr. Mullins. Does any board member wish to pull any of these items?
Good catch.
Do you wish to pull an item, Ms. Campbell?
For discussion.
Which, you got to pull an item. Which, the letter number?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, nope, never mind. Forget
Scratch
I said-
that?
Scratch that.
Okay, we'll go back to what are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Motion by Ms. Belford, second by Ms. McDougall. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Does any board member need to take a break? We've been at it about an hour and a half. Anybody need a break? Everybody good? Okay, we'll continue on. We will then move on to the action agenda. Dr. Mullins.
Ms. Deskovich, there first is item G27 on department school-initiated agreements.
What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Belford. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins,
Item G28 is on purchasing solicitations.
what are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. Dr. Mullins,
The next three items are on policies. As part of the approval process, the following timeline has been held. There was a work session for Board Policy 2461, recording of IEP meetings held on March 12, 2019. A rule development workshop for Board Policies 2461, 2520, and 2510 was held on March 26, 2019. The policies were presented as information at the March 26th board meeting and are now here for you for public hearing and approval.
the public hearing is now open. First to approve is Board Policy 2461, recording of IEP meetings. Is there anyone who has come to speak to the board this evening on Policy 2461, recording of the IEP meetings? Is there anyone who has come to speak to the board on Policy 2461 on recording of IEP meetings? I will entertain a motion from the board.
Move to approve.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. McDougall. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. We will move on to the second policy. Is there anyone who's come to make comments regarding Board Policy 2520, selection and adoption of instructional materials, objections, and requests for reconsideration? Mr. Boone? All of the same guidelines, policies reapply that I read earlier. Do you need me to read it again? You've got 3 minutes. Nothing profane.
Oh, no, I'm not going to read anything this time.
Okay, thank you,
No.
sir. Please go ahead.
I would just ask the board to please consider, since there have been different things brought up, possible changes, inclusions of terminology, statutes, et cetera, that perhaps you would consider setting this off and taking one more look at it. You've done, everything in there isn't what I want, but it's not about me. And it has changed. It's more defined, but I think it's so close to being better than what it is right now. And I appreciate all the work you all have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Boone. Is there anyone else that would like to make comments regarding Board Policy 2520, selection and adoption of instructional materials, objections, and requests for reconsideration? What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Campbell. Any discussion?
I would like to, I spoke with Amy Inval yesterday or whenever it was, about how we might go about and making changes. And also, we've gotten lots of input, and I just want to thank, I don't know if there are any of our media specialists or English teachers are here who contacted us, but thank you for their input and their concerns. But there are a few things that I think would be good to go back, but talking to Amy, it seems like the best thing to do at this time, because the revised policy as it stands on the agenda is much better than what we've had before, and that if we go ahead and approve it tonight, we will have a policy in place, because part of it is repealing 2510, and so we'll have something in place, and then as a board, we can direct staff to go back and make some changes, because there's no limit on how often we can revise a policy. So my thoughts are that it would be wise to go ahead and approve the policy as it stands this evening on the agenda. so that we have that in place. And then if we want to make changes further, that we go back and look at revising it again. And then we would have to go through the process of the 3 hearings. But that's what I'd like us to consider doing.
Would anyone else? Does anyone else have thoughts they would like to share? Mr. Susan?
Yeah, I think that that's the sentiment that we've had, that I had in conversations with Dr. Mullins and our directors, is that if we want to make any quick changes, we need to put something in place, and then possibly from there, make any adoptions that you would like.
Can you do the mic?
Yeah, that's it. I'm done.
Ms. Belford, any comments?
I am fine going either way. I do think that there's a little bit of cleanup, some of the language and like days when things occur, and I think there's some additional work that we can do there. If we do not move forward with the approval of the policy, then we need to not address the next policy, because that's the removal of the current policy, and in that case, we would have nothing in place. So I will support the will of the board, whichever way you all think is the best way to go.
I've changed my mind.
It's your prerogative to change your mind.
I've changed my mind. In my past life, I was also a librarian, and I get real nervous when we get real specific about banning any type of books. So I like this policy. I think our staff spent a lot of time on this policy. This is our 3rd public hearing on this, so I like what we have at this point, so I would like us to go ahead too.
My recommendation is that we pause on both 2520 and 2510, as not to cause any confusion by just pausing on. I have no problem with deleting 2510, but because of, I think, what Ms. Belford said, it's all or nothing at this point. We can't delete one because the other one kind of encompasses it. I sent you all an email, but just to publicly state, one of my main concerns is we had a workshop, and I felt like our recommendation was that the board each had one person representing them on the district level review committee, and the policy that was presented to us says that we will have one. Oh, we had that we each had one, and then we were specific about having one person, one teacher, one administrator, one resource teacher, and so on. And the way the policy was presented to us, it says at least one, which means there could be 5 or 10, and then the board members are left with representation of just one. And I know we can go back through this again for another 6 weeks, but I'd rather get it done right. The other concern is it says we have Sunshine State standards. Ms. Belford sent a message saying that that's actually in statute, which is surprising because we don't have Sunshine State standards right now. I think we need to have a cleaner policy. I'm not comfortable approving a policy that still has so many errors. So. Mr. Susan?
What would the timetable be if we were to just pause and workshop it again or send direction? What does that look like?
It's about 6 weeks, because under Chapter 120, we have to advertise for 28 days, and we have to make sure that you have a rule development workshop scheduled. So it just takes a little bit of time, but it's about 6 weeks.
If we amend it, do we have to go back through the 3?
Yes, because it has to be published in substantially the same form that you're asking the public to take a look at and then comment on.
And until we actually approve any changes, we're just back to the original what we
have, right.
And is that inhibiting us in any way to, So is the old policy hurting us by not moving forward?
In the microphone.
It would be my opinion that the old policy is not as clear as what the proposed version is. We've already gone through the, public hearing process, but the board can either approve the policy the way it is and we can make further revisions from there. It's going to be hard to go back and make more red lines to the red lines.
Right.
But we can do either way.
So either way, if the board recommends we're going back, it's either, we can either approve tonight and immediately say we want to go back and revise. We're in the same process, or we can disapprove tonight and we're going to go back and have the process. But if we approve tonight, then we have a policy in place that at least is better than what it was. If we disapprove tonight, we're going back to what we had before.
That's correct.
It's, for me, it's 6 weeks. And how many of these challenges have we had in the last 3 years? Anyone from the back?
One.
One. So for me, 6 weeks with the same policy we've had till we get it right that's where I stand. Anyone else? Comments?
Make a motion to table
We have a motion. We have a motion on the floor that we have to.
And if we table it, then we're not.
Making a motion to amend.
We can't revise it if we table it. Correct?
Right. You can't revise it at this point. Even tabling it doesn't work because we have to re-advertise. So it would be my recommendation to either approve or disapprove and then provide direction to staff moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Enval. Any more questions or comments from board members? Okay. There's a motion on the table to approve policy 2520 as given to us. It was given by Mr. Susan, I think, and seconded by Ms. Campbell. Please vote. Motion passes 3-2. I feel like we need to follow up with a little direction for staff at this point. How does everyone feel about now bringing it back to the table to still continue to work on it?
Yes, please.
So we need to advertise and workshop?
So we're going to have another workshop?
If we want to, what I would recommend is doing a work session, and that way the board can specifically, either individually, you can provide comments to myself or to Ms. Klein, and then we can make those changes in red line. We can even, I can
I think that's a good
identify and do
idea.
a work session so that we have all the language set that the board wants, and then we can discuss it, and the board can say yay or nay, and then we can go ahead and advertise and have a rule event workshop and another public hearing for a school board meeting.
Okay. Tammy, if you can work with Pam to help getting us a work session on the calendar. I think it's such a lengthy, long policy that
is.
has a lot in it. I think
It
it's
is.
important that we kind of break it down and go through it. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the final policy. Is there anyone who's come to address the repeal of Board Policy 2510, adoption of textbooks? Is there anyone here tonight who has come to address the repeal of Board Policy 2510, adoption of textbooks? What are the wishes of the board?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Susan, second by Ms. Campbell. Is there any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes 5-0. That concludes the public hearing portion of tonight's meeting. We'll now move on to the information agenda, which includes items for board review and will be brought back for action at a subsequent meeting. No action will be taken on these items. Dr. Mullins?
There are 2 items under the information category.
Does any member wish to discuss an item on the information agenda? Okay, we are now at board member reports. Does anyone have anything they wish to add? Mr. Susan, you have the EKG discussion you would like to have.
Want me to start now? So I wanted to first off say thank you for everybody that came out tonight, and there was a couple of things that I wanted to state. Our staff has worked diligently to put together an MOU, which is a Memorandum of Understanding, so that our school district could move forward with the screenings. And I wanted to say thank you to Ms. Moore and staff for how hard they worked in developing that. Just so that everybody knows, we didn't have a standard MOU with who we play for as of like 6 months ago. So we were doing these screenings and it was great, but we kind of had some violations across the board, so we wanted to do that. I wanted to give a huge thank you for taking the time to work on those specific issues, get an MOU together. I think we're in the process of almost having that completed. And I wanted to say also thank you to the board for the workshop that we had where we were positive towards working with who we play for and everything else. So I didn't want it to seem that it was Matt Susan on some kind of a charge, whereas the entire district, along with our school board members, have been in support of what who we play for as a whole have been doing. So I wanted to just get that as part of what I said before I got going. When I looked at this, there was a bunch of, I'm looking tonight to get a recommendation to send Dr. Mullins to look at and come back with a policy which says that we are going to move forward with mandatory screenings for EKGs on our students. I looked at all of the concerns over the last week and 2 weeks on top of this process that we've been doing now for close to 6 months to a year. There was an issue that we were dealing with that lists the costs. This may be too much for our people. I do want to say that the physical costs are a small portion of what we do. Football at some schools is between $200 and $300. Baseball is between $150 and $200. Soccer is between $150 and $185. Track is $100 to $125. Basketball's between $75 to $125. And every single kid finds a way to find that money to get there. So I think that when we look at the list of costs as a deterrent towards individuals, not only the $50,000 that Who We Play For has raised over the last year to offset the cost of the low disadvantaged students, but also the fact that as a former coach, we find a way to do it. And I think that the cost is not an issue in regards to that. The other piece is there was some question and concern about a kid who late registration. So all of a sudden, you know, we have these massive physicals where the entire school comes on July 1st and they have everybody set up, they do the physicals, they do all the work. But then what happens about the poor kid that shows up in registration day? And how do we catch those kind of kids? Like, if we're going to do the screenings and we're going to make it mandatory, how do those kids not fall through if Who We Play For is moving to other districts and doing other things or is occupied? I spoke to the CEO of the Brevard Health Alliance. They have 12 locations of orthopedics and different various offices that are willing to support this endeavor, to where if a student is willing to go and missed the screenings at the school and they're not available to do it, that the Brevard Health Alliance, we could go to one of those 12 locations and have them do it for the same price. So that eased my actual eased my thing, and I want to say thank you to them. It's a big deal for them. I wanted to address the low socioeconomic issue that we have with some of the students, and maybe I'm thinking about this wrong, but when we go across and we say to the low socioeconomic kids, hey, they may not be able to afford it, this may be a deterrent, this may be, I kind of find it actually the opposite. Being a former coach, I do know that if it's not mandatory, that some of the kids may fall through whose parents may not be as involved, whose families are not there all the time. So you may have where we're sitting there saying it's a high recommendation to do it, that information may only be going to the individuals whose families are very involved. But unfortunately in sports, it's our coaches and our athletic trainers and other individuals that are the ones that are fighting to get those kids the actual forms and getting everything else. And I feel that if we move with a high recommendation towards doing it without it being mandatory, that those kids actually would work in reverse and be affected being low socioeconomic, and we capture them by making it a actual requirement because of the fact that they will find a way to make sure that those kids get it, and they can also file for scholarships through Who We Play For. I did want to talk to about the false negative. There's some fear that the false negatives would come back as far as a test. Yes, there is some anomalies that occur, but just so everybody understands, this is not a you get this test and you're done. It is a you get this test and then you move and you get further testing done to ensure that it's not a false negative, that it's not something that's negative that may come back. And those further tests signify the level that if you can or cannot play. Does that understand? Sorry, I'm running through these things. If any time you guys want to stop me or something now for a question on what I'm going through. I know, I see her doing it, so I know I'm going to get ready for it. I did want to say that the effect on the schools, we saw it with the impact. We as a district have spent a lot of energy, and I've been a part of it and we've been behind it, for the social emotional, for the kids who have issues and we lose students to other issues, we are addressing those. But we have kids that we are also losing in our schools, and this is one of those that I think we have to address. When we go out and we get the social emotional counselors, when we spend the money to do all the things that we're doing in those other realms, we are addressing an issue, but we have a hole here, and we have kids that are also passing for other reasons, and we're not addressing those with a mandate or a work towards a goal as far as bringing them under our realm and making sure that our coaches and everybody else are not impacted. I did want to tell you this. Like, I was a coach in 2006 is when I started coaching for Space Coast High School. And I'll never forget coming out as a coach and why this comes passionately to me. I can remember sitting there going through the physical. And I'm sorry, I'm probably going to throw some people under the bus here. But the physicals don't have to be a a medical person. They can be a chiropractor. So my close friend was the actual athletic trainer at the time. And we had a huge fear of this specific issue because we had people that we were testing for a physical, we were testing for a hernia, and that's great, but no kid has passed because of a hernia in the last 30 years or however long inside of our school system. This was our biggest fear. So I want you guys to understand my passion behind this comes from when I was sitting coaching many years before over a possible issue that we would have had because a lot of this wasn't being addressed. I will tell you, as a coach, I would have been at that podium in 2006 begging to do just what they're doing because of this being a offsetting piece to make sure that this got taken care of. I have a slew of other things that I would like to go through, but I would like to open it to the floor for discussion and any questions that you guys have as we move towards a recommendation or not.
Ms. Belford.
I didn't even ask. So I agree with nearly all of what you said, Mr. Susan. I do have a couple of concerns, logistical concerns in the process. And I don't think they're deal breaker concerns, but I do think that they're things that we have to consider and probably some conversations that we have to have. And I would encourage all of the board members to reach out to the staffs at their school and have conversations with them about the recommendation of making it mandatory for a couple of reasons. You all know at the workshop, my son has gone through his screening. I'm a proponent of doing that. Another child who is like my own went through his screening, got the phone call, something is wrong, something could potentially be wrong, and you need to have additional follow-up. He went and had additional follow-up, and thank goodness there was nothing wrong. I don't have the concerns about the false negatives. Just because I think as a parent, I would rather know. I'm not, now if we're sending, 80% of the students that are getting screenings to a cardiologist for follow-up, then I think that could potentially be a red flag that something's, not as it should be. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's appropriate referral and we're able to, to rule out any additional concern. Where I do have some concerns is the ability of our staffs at the school to effectively track. Meaning when they bring in a physical form, we can check off we have a physical form, right? But if we're not doing screenings and submitting physicals on the same day, which we can't do, right? Because you can't sign off, you can't say a student is healthy when they've just had the EKG. They have to get notification that it's been read, it's been, looked at again. So I have some concerns about the process of ensuring that we are effectively tracking and following up and making sure that all students are in fact getting cleared with that before they're allowed to take part in anything. I also have some concerns about who we include in that. My son, for example, is required to have a physical for ROTC, I believe, but he is not considered an athlete. And so I think we need to have some additional discussion about who really needs to be screened. I mean, we heard from one mom this evening that said that her child at 12 was playing on the playground, and she suffered that loss. And so I think we owe some additional conversation to that. And I would actually like to push a little bit farther on this issue and see if there's a possibility for us to work with the Department of Health and have them incorporate this into the standard school physical. Because yes, it is our athletes that we are losing more often than not. And that's a step in the right direction to ensure that we're checking our athletes. But my fear is that we're not doing enough by just settling on mandating it for athletes. And then I also fear that we are opening up our staff members and our district to liability if we don't have an effective management plan in place to make sure that we're dotting all of our i's and crossing all of our t's. And so those would be my recommendations. I think that, you know, we can work together and really make sure that we get the right things in place to ensure that we are doing things the way that they should be done. But what I don't want to do is, I don't want to put our coaches in a bad place, our athletic directors in a bad place, our school staff in a bad place, because we haven't consulted them on how this impacts their function and their ability to make sure that the right things are happening. At the same time, I want to make sure that we are effectively screening all of the students who should be screened, because I don't want it to be a false sense of security that we've said, we're going to make sure that all students are going to have an ECG, but we don't have a plan in place to make sure that it's actually happening.
When you said a student physical, an annual school physical, that's not required, though, for them to attend school. I mean, my children get it, but do all children? I mean, you get a physical, I think at kindergarten you have to have some, but...
You have to have a physical and you have to have proof of vaccination. And there, like, for example, my daughter is getting ready to go into 7th grade, and there's a vaccine that she needs to go into 7th grade that she didn't have to go into 6th grade.
Thinking kindergarten? Like, what? I don't understand.
You know, I think that warrants discussion with the people who are much more knowledgeable about the issue than I am. I think in conversations with Curt and with Evan that there are kind of some recommended times in life that the screening should take place, but I haven't dug into it to do the research. And so, you know, I think that's something that we need to identify. But I think we need to look at it, you know, from a broader perspective. Our band kids, quite frankly, are out there in hot uniforms, practicing in the middle of the summer, and there is no physical required. You know, no EKG required, no discussion of even including them in a mandate for it. And so I think we really need to look at the big picture on it and make sure that we are doing truly what's best for our students and not something that just soundbite sounds good.
So what I'm hearing you say is that you'd like to move forward with making it mandatory, but you want to hear back from staff over all these different issues that we may have and bring back a recommendation, whether that's good or bad, and have conversation along those lines.
And potentially it's not a district issue. Potentially it's something that we work out with the health department, raise awareness and impact more kids. And then it is, you know, just like there are requirements to enter school or to enter certain grades. I think we need to explore all options to ensure that we're having maximum impact.
And I agree with you 100%. My fear would be that as we open the scope to be bigger, it becomes more regulation, more issues and everything else. And we may run into a situation where we end up over analyzing and paralysis by analysis of too much, right? So what I would like to do is to give Dr. Mullen's recommendation to move forward with some kind of a policy and come back to us, whether that's with the health department or what that looks like, for us to say that the board has the will to move towards a mandatory, but we as individuals aren't completely sure. I mean, Osceola just said, we're doing this. They officially are moving forward with it. They have found a way to do it. So we can negotiate with them, we can do all that stuff, but what we don't want to do is just kind of not give the will of the board or the recommendation. That would be my biggest fear, is that we start the ball rolling towards that move.
Can I just say something?
Yes, Ms. McDougall.
This is a very important tool, and I agree. And I was reminded that one of my friend's son died just walking across campus for this very same lack of EKG. But I'm concerned, why? I went to the Florida High School Athletic Association website because I would thought that they would have something on there. You can find anything you want about concussions, enhancing drugs, what uniforms and type of padding you need. But this is an issue that I'm hearing that it's affecting more and more of our students. And why is this organization not jumping in on this? Because I think this is an organization from across our whole state. And I don't know if anybody has an answer, but I would think that, I thought you might, but I think that, to me, to get to get people on board, why are they not jumping on board too? Because this is certainly affecting our children. So.
Misty had a follow-up too.
Concur?
I'd be happy,
So-
I'd be happy to address any issue that you might have if you'd like me to.
Would you prefer
Thank you,
Kurt to
sir.
respond?
You already know? You know the answer?
Well, I'm going to give you some perspective. But if you want to go ahead and
Kurt,
address it, and then I'll.
Have you
Well,
approached them already?
Yes, we have been working with them, and in fact, we're able to get them to adopt a policy that, again, is similar to the policy that you had in the past, which says encourages. And the reason why they do that is because, and like many people, the NCAA is also included in this, that they didn't think that the infrastructure was in place to support something that's mandated. And we as an organization are now here to say to you that we have that capacity. We have a plan for it, we have a business model for it, we have all of the network and relationships that will be able to screen as many athletes and or students, band members, whoever you all determine needs to get it. We can provide those screenings. And we are working with all of the health organizations in the different counties that we're working in to catch anybody who slips through the cracks, anybody who comes late and or anybody who decided at a late date that they actually wanted to run track in the spring. And so the service can be made available through the various health departments. So I guess the answer to your question is we're trying to encourage counties from their school boards to adopt these policies. And as we gain momentum and prove that we can provide these services, then ultimately we'll go back to the high school administration and see if they will adopt a policy that makes it a requirement.
Thank you, sir.
I did want to say I got off the phone. I called the American Heart Association, David Francis, up in Tallahassee, and I had a conversation with him last Friday. And I talked to him about this prior to bringing it forward and everything else. And he said, we absolutely agree that we need to have them tested. But he said exactly that they eventually are going to move towards it. But at this time, they're not sure if they have the infrastructure in place. And that goes to your concerns over the who, the what, the when, the where, the why. I mean, those are very large issues that need to be addressed. And I think it is not a good thing as far as us to move forward with making it happen right now. I don't think anybody in the room wants to do that. We want to do this right. So, but I think that what we were looking for as far as the school board was to move forward with, hey, we agree that it should be mandatory. Let's look at it in that regard and come back with a recommendation.
Ms. Belford?
And Ms. McDougall, to your point, I mentioned that I'm a drowning prevention advocate, right? And so I've been teaching infant survival swim for, I think 12 years now, 13 years maybe. My point in sharing that is drowning has been the leading cause of death in children 0 to 4 years old for as long as we have kept track. And those statistics are, like, no one has challenged the statistics, the reality of those statistics. But the American Academy of Pediatrics just this year, despite the fact that I have 13 years of students who have literally used the skills I taught them to save themselves, the American Academy of Pediatrics just came out this year and said that they endorse high-quality swim instruction for drowning prevention. And so oftentimes these national organizations or statewide organizations just simply don't keep up. And we're looking at a grassroots effort here, similar to the work that I do with drowning prevention. And oftentimes it is the momentum at the grassroots and really making a national impact that finally gets those statewide and national organizations to come on board and actually do the research.
Okay. So my thoughts are this. Bureaucracy takes forever. And I think that's kind of what you were saying. National organizations, state organizations, it takes them years. We're here at the local level and we can do something. Do we have everything in place that we need? No. Are we sure the forms aren't going to get lost? No, but you know what popped into my mind when you said that is you're not getting through our front doors until your 2 proof of addresses are turned in. Anybody that has a kid in our school right now knows, even as a school board member, they will not let my kid attend school on Monday morning unless my 2 forms of address are there. I'm pretty sure our coaches can, and I know my son's coach. He does not play, he's not even allowed to try out for basketball until the physical form is in hand. So adding an EKG form or a box on that form, to me, is yeah, that's not a reason not to move forward. I don't think we have all the answers right now, but I'm 100%, somebody has to do something. I agree working with the health department long-term. I agree trying to grow and support, but we have our own purview. We have 73,000 students that we're in charge of. And yes, band students are a great idea, annual physicals are a great idea, but we can start with our athletes, and then we can grow from there. So to sum that up, I support moving forward with getting us to a point where it's mandatory, at least for our athletes, and then work from there to grow it within the community so that all children are getting screened.
I do, I like your broad thinking, Ms. Belford. We definitely have the research and the data and the statistics of our athletes, and I think that's a good place for us to focus right now. I appreciate all the work that our staff did getting ready for the workshop that we did a few months ago, and I remember Ms. Moore saying we're trying to get to a place of yes. I know we still have some things to figure out, but I was hoping that we would be able to move to that place of yes, or we could make it, if we get the answers in place, where we could make it mandatory. Because I know when I met with you, I said, okay, who's going to keep track of these records? Because we can't add that to our staff. We don't have the capacity to do that. I'm really excited to hear about the partner with the Brevard Health Alliance, because I know some of our students will not be able to work with you, or if it happens that this grows so big that you don't have the capacity to do it. I know you have the business plan, but we need to make sure we've got some things in place and that it's the same cost. And then also the district is not, it is worth it, but the district is not in a place at this point to cover the cost of our free and reduced lunch students. But you have very gracious sponsors who are willing to cover that for our needy students. So I would also like to see us move towards that policy.
Ms. Belford.
If I may, you all jokingly remind me that I am the matriarch of the board at this point. And I take that with love as it's intended, I'm sure. I am absolutely behind moving in this direction. The only thing that I would caution the board on, the discussion here right now is you are directing the superintendent to have a policy drafted that would make this mandatory. And I want to make very clear that I really think there needs to be some discussion with our teams at the schools and some determination as to how we can effectively do this. Because as you said, Ms. Campbell, Mr. Easton says they will be more than happy to keep track of those records. But if our students are going to Brevard Health Alliance and not going to who we play for, or if there are lots of contingency issues there that potentially put the district at risk, put our staff members at risk, and put our students at risk if we're not effectively screening. So I am pleased, for those of you with who we play for, understand I am absolutely behind moving in the direction that you want to go, and I want to do it as quickly and efficiently as we can. My recommendation would be that we direct the superintendent to find a way to get us to that yes in whatever way, shape, or form he thinks is best, as opposed to asking him to bring us a policy making it mandatory. I just want to be clear what we're asking, that we are all in agreement as to where we need to go as an organization, but there's a big difference between directing the superintendent to draft a policy and asking the superintendent to please find a way to yes for us and bring us some recommendations.
Great. Just to be clear, a yes on mandatory, correct, for
Correct.
athletes?
Correct.
So, okay, we know where Misty stands, we know where Mr. Susan stands. Ms. McDougall, you agree with what Ms. Belford just said? Ms. Campbell, you agree? Dr. Mullins, is the direction somewhat clear?
Ms. Deskovich, if you would summarize it again, just to make sure I understand exactly what the board's direction is.
It is the board's desire that you work towards getting us probably an MOU with who we play for and making it mandatory for our athletes at this time to have an EKG screening. Does everyone agree with that statement? Okay.
I would recommend that we give the superintendent more leeway to evaluate options beyond an MOU dictating mandatory EKGs is a policy for the district, right? So we all want it to be a part of our policy that it become mandatory, but that's his job to figure out how to get there. Our desire is to make sure that our athletes are screened and protected, and it's his job to figure out how that happens.
Okay, so let me restate that. It is our desire to have mandatory screenings for all of our athletes within the district. It's your job to figure out how to make that happen.
Can I rescind my clarification? Just kidding. No, I will work with staff. Would it be the board's desire, interest for me and staff to bring to a workshop the process by which to do that before it comes to the board for approval? Or there are a lot of factors that have gone into, that have to be taken into consideration. Or we can do a board presentation at the meeting when it would be approved, or, because there are elements.
I don't feel like we have any more input than we just gave. We're not experts, we're not professionals. I think you can work out the kinks and with staff and present to us what you ultimately have, unless someone wants to be more involved in the weeds of how this works out.
When we had the workshop before, I think it was the recommendation of once every 3 years, right? So we would need, is the normal recommendation.
Well, what we
starting in 7th grade.
What we would hope to do is, once this is a requirement, then we would screen all of your student athletes from 7th grade all the way through 12th as a base screening. And then after that, we would do 7th grade and 9th grade, because those are the two critical years where this sort of thing starts to happen. That's the recommendation from our medical advisors. But while I have the mic, I only ask that please use us as a resource as you go through this policy promulgation, because we have a lot of the answers to the questions that you're raising, and we'd be happy to help you get through any of these issues. So please use us as a resource as you move forward. We'd be happy to help you. Dr. Mullins.
Thank you, Curt. I would just remind there are implications of financial obligations and those type of things that need to be worked out. So just I want to make sure the board is aware of all of the factors that have to be taken into consideration. None of them are, the words were, deal breakers, I suspect, but we are talking about several thousand students, particularly in an initial screening and so on. So we want to make sure we've covered every base. We haven't inadvertently overlooked students, but I anticipate there could be some district financial obligation involved as well. So I don't know if that changes the board's interest to know. I can put together what that would look like and bring it to the board. I just want to make sure the board's aware.
I think you get working and it'll start playing out. You'll know if we need a whole workshop, or if you can just present us with a package you feel good about. You can call us individually. I think putting a workshop is a little jumping the gun. Yeah? No? You want a workshop?
Well, I think that the general gist of what we're trying to do can be accomplished in a presentation at a board, and we can get our one-on-ones in between. I just didn't want to run into a situation where we just drag it out because there's one more thing. So I think you had made direction that, yes, we don't need a workshop, but we can just get a presentation and work towards that along the way. Does that make sense?
I think obviously the superintendent is going to need direction from us on some issues along the way. I'm fairly certain that he's been listening to the concerns that we have voiced and the challenges that we anticipate facing. Obviously he doesn't have the authorization to make a financial commitment to the program, so that's all going to have to come back to us. So, whatever we can do to move in that direction, but I think there are still a lot of questions that need to be answered.
I see Ms. Moore, who knows this a lot better than I do, anxious to come and provide just some additional questions or clarification.
Just clarification. First off, thank you for everybody that's here today. The agreement that we have been working on, it's been a combination of risk management, Penny Zucker, Amy Envo, Bill Maharis, and who we play for. And there's been a lot of work put into it. And the original intent was to formalize the informal agreement that Who We Play For had with our schools. So we have a formal agreement now. It covers student protection rights, it covers our school board, it covers our school, and it covers our students. And as we move forward on the ask, we were ready to present the agreement to you guys at the next board meeting. So I don't want to confuse us presenting this with us moving forward with your ask, but this puts a formal process in place where before we didn't have very many protections across the board for anybody. So I wanted to make sure that was still the wishes of the board.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. I believe it's our wish to move forward. You guys have worked hard on that. Let's get that in place. That way there's something in place as we move forward. Does everyone agree that that's a good idea? Yeah, we're still on the same page. Thank you.
And in the process, I think that we don't need to recreate the wheel. If Osceola has already mandated this for their people, we can pretty much look at how they do it. They're a like district also in size. That gives us the footprint that we need, if that makes sense.
We will certainly reach out to them.
Thank you, sir.
For me, I just want to make sure that we're not taking shortcuts. I want to make sure that we do reach out. This is, you're the one who asked us to do this, that you get to reach out to our coaches. It's a process. I think the process is what a lot of us were talking about, we're concerned. Because I think we all are on the same page that, yes, this is important. What is the process in place so that we protect everyone and we don't add added work to our staff at this point?
So I hear that we all agree that this is going to be mandatory and we are going to give Dr. Mullins the opportunity to go back and figure out how to do it, right?
That's what we're saying.
All thumbs?
That's what we're saying.
All right. Okay, just wanted to make sure because we start getting silence.
Are there any more discussion points, or Dr. Mullins, do you have any report? You have a superintendent's report you would like to share?
Not tonight, thank you.
Okay, great. Then this meeting is adjourned.
Okay.
Thought it would never end.